Hi friends, so today we will discuss about management of change, which is one of the main concepts when dealing with process safety management. So let's start into the subject. What is the course objective and a little recap on what is PSM, process safety management, and an overview of MOC. So by end of this video, you will be able to understand where to keep the MOC within the context of PSM and explain why and when MOC is needed, describe the steps in MOC implementation, identify the tools, checklists used in MOC process, explain how MOC is documented and archived. So a small recap on PSM and where MOC is placed. So as said, as given here, PSM is a holistic system comprising of 14 elements as per OSHA standard. Like what do you mean by holistic? Like holistic means it's it's like a whole, like WHOLE whole, but each element has different and separate prominence. Like if at all we consider face, like face comprises of eyes, nose, ears, mouth, and each has its own importance. Likewise, PSM has 14 elements and each individual has its prominence. So in that 14 elements, one major element is MOC, like management of change. And what do you mean by PSM? PSM is a set of formal management practices designed to prevent, mitigate, and respond to process plant accidents. What is management of change? Management of change is a systematic procedure for the review of changes, including small changes to the documented process technology, process safety information, and/or facilities, and for the consideration of potential hazards being introduced to the process, system, or operation, and their elimination or control. So, in short, management of change is nothing but a procedure where the changes need to be documented for present reference and for future reference. And what is the need for management of change? As said earlier, whatever assessment that has been done will shall be recorded and reviewed. Process changes potentially invalidate prior hazard assessments and create new hazards. Accordingly, all process and facility changes must be reviewed so that appropriate controls can be taken. What are the key requirements in MOC implementation? All process and facility changes should be reviewed by knowledgeable person, so-called subject matter experts, SMEs, and authorized by responsible management. Site personnel site personnel must understand what a change is. Like the persons in the shop floor or the cross-functional team should understand what is the change that is being happened in the shop floor, like whether it is a pipe change or process change or equipment change, that need to be understood by the site personnel, and when to seek a review and authorization. Sites shall develop and implement a written procedure to define what constitutes a change, define who is involved in requesting, reviewing, and approving changes, establish documentation to be used for changes, ensure updating of SOP or BPR and documented PSA, develop method for informing and training people on the changes, because training is very much important if at all any change happens. Archive MOC documentation for future reference. Audit operations for proper application of MOC procedure. What is a site procedure should constitute of? What is the purpose of site MOC procedure? Site procedure, site MOC procedure should evaluate EHS impacts like environment, health, and safety impacts of all the proposed changes related to process technology and facilities, and describe the requirements for documenting, reviewing, and approving these changes. And what is the scope of the MOC procedure? Like, what should it address? It should address proposed changes in the existing process in terms of raw materials specifications, like any specifications like raw material specifications or equipment specifications, processing steps, procedures, facilities, equipment, utilities, and support system, packaging materials, and control system hardware and software. Like, even if any DCS operation changes are there, that should be documented. And new process introduction in the existing production facilities. So what are the responsibilities? What is the responsibility of PSM subcommittee? PSM subcommittee is responsible to oversee and provide guidance in implementation of this procedure at site and to conduct self audits on this procedure. MOC coordinator. He will act as an overall custodian of the change control workflow documentation. Change initiator. He raises the change and progresses the change to the required level. HOD of the initiating department assesses the proposed change and will either decline the request or approve the initiation. Forms the MOC committee, could be a standing committee, approves the change post the review by the MOC committee. The cross-functional team appointed by the MOC committee. Like, cross-functional team could be or should be a quality personnel, safety personnel, process engineer, production team, and if requires, warehouse team, HR team also. The cross-functional team is responsible for conducting the reviews in order to evaluate the key impacts of the change, decide whether the change is acceptable or unacceptable, recommend measures if needed, and she head, like EHS head or she head. He is a part of the MOC committee. Action owners. The action owners are the ones who need to complete the actions as per the agreed target date. Composition of MOC committee. MOC committee normally consists of a change initiator. A change initiator may be of any user department, like whether it may be of quality, admin, warehouse, environment, engineering, or any other, like process engineer, production manager or executive, maintenance engineers or project engineer or instrumentation engineer or electrical engineer, safety manager or safety representative, R&D or process development chemist. Where is the MOC applied? Whenever an existing process is changed with respect to the following: materials, specifications, and their suppliers. 2. The processing steps, descriptions, processing conditions, step sequences, process flow scheme. Secondly, whenever a new process is introduced into an existing plant. Thirdly, whenever there is a change in plant facility with respect to the following: site layout, plant or block layout, P&ID, equipment modifications, replacement, addition or removal, instrumentation, alarm or interlock settings, and control system logic sequences. It may be of hardware and software. And finally, whenever there is a change in practices, whether it may be a written procedures, packaging, material movement, etc. And we need to record the personnel changes also. Like if at all any human is replaced by some other human, like if at all one person left the company, that should also be documented. MOC application is not required. MOC does not apply when the change is a replacement in kind. What do you mean by replacement in kind? Replacement in kind is nothing but if at all the same equipment is being replaced with the same specifications, with the same MOC, that need not be documented. Like that should be documented, but all the changes need not be recorded. The function of the replacement must be identical to the original to qualify as a replacement in kind. As said earlier, it should be the same thing as earlier. The make and model must also be the same as the original unless the replacement is manufactured to establish its standards and is obtained from an approved supplier. MOC has a process flow. Firstly, it should be initiated. Second, the review and approval. And the third and the final part is closure. In the initiation step, what is the change means the change has to be defined and change request has to be raised and it should be finally accepted by the HOD of the user department. And review and approval. Review and approval is where the safety personnel and the cross-functional team has its role. Other people has to review and approve the change and give the target dates for the same change and the change has to be happened. And finally closure. The change has to be completed. Here we need to provide the evidence for whether the change has been whether the controls has been kept in place or not. And finally review and close the change. MOC initiation. Generally there will be a change request form. It differs from site to site and company to company. Whatever it is, process flow is the chain control process starts. The user department will raise the request. If at all any changes are there, he will be discussing the same with his HOD and the changes are recorded and the form 1 or else the initial request form will be submitted for review to the cross-functional team. Here comes the change approval form where the cross-functional teams will sit and discuss for the same change what are all the requirements that are to be there, like whether the change request needs a risk assessment, like if at all any risk assessment is there, process has that analysis to be done, or else trainings are required, training should be provided, and any other regulatory or statutory requirements are there that should be done. And finally the change will be approved by the cross-functional team and the targets are provided. Any PHA or process hazard analysis is required for what the PHA is required. Like if at all any pipe change is there, or else any small changes where there is no big impact, then PHA is not required as per the management. Like if at all any new process into the existing plant or block is done, scale changes of the existing process is done, major process change, major modifications existing plant, new facility or block, then PHA is recommended and should be done, and it's mandatory. Checklist based MOC is adequate for the rest of changes. Like if at all there is minor changes, we need to develop a MOC checklist where all the general changes are to be incorporated in the checklist and need to be verified. Like any electrical changes, like whether earthing and bonding is provided or not, plant layout modifications need to be done or not, whether cap walls need to be constructed or not. So these type of small changes need to be incorporated into a checklist and can be used. Like minor process change involving similar chemistry and minor modifications in the facility. Finally, MOC closure. In the closure change form, all the cross-function as accepted by the cross-functional team leaders or the members, the change need to be once again reviewed and the evidences need to provide it to the HODs so that there will be clarity on the work and there will be closure of the MOC which can be documented for further use. So what needs to be done now? Go through the site MOC procedure once again and this training module. Clear any doubt so that it will be useful for you. Prepare MOC implementation plan. Upon approval by the site head, appoint MOC committee and MOC coordinator. Identify personnel to be trained on MOC application and plan periodic training to them. MOC coordinator to establish and maintain tracking system for all change control formats taken through MOC process. Implement MOC at your site. And thank you so very much, guys, for giving me this opportunity.